killing people?
They look alive to me.
Because I saved them.
Well, that's why I waited until you were there. I got the information I needed. No one died. I did it your way.
He does have a point.
I know it got lost in all the confusion, but we still have some issues to settle here.
We know where Amon is. We have to go.
There is no we here. There are only heroes and there are villains.
You think yourself a hero, but you would let these criminals go free, knowing that many more will suffer at their hands unless we end them now.
Heroes don't kill people.
Well, I do.
Here we go.
Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles Podcast. I'm your host, Perry Constantine, and today I am joined by a new guest on this show, although he has been on my other show, Japan on Film, and that is Kaz Wheeler. Kaz, how you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on this one.
Well, thanks for coming on. Had a good time having you on the other show, so I was glad when you dropped me a line about coming on here. Not so psyched about the movie choice you picked, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. Before we do that, though, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Kaz Wheeler. I am the host of the Japanese wrestling podcast, Didn't Get All of It Japan, where we cover news and events in every week of the Japan wrestling calendar. And I figured we'd do this movie because what's closer to superheroes than professional wrestling? I thought it melded very well. And, as it turns out, the guy we're going to be talking about, great professional wrestler.
That's true, yeah, and we'll talk about kind of his history with superhero movies and kind of like dancing around it, because it does go back quite a while. I remember discussions back when he was a wrestler, Dwayne Johnson, and I remember discussions around the comic shop about, what potential characters he should play and all that kind of stuff.
We'll get all into that.
Back. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I actually went back and looked because I remember very early on when there were talks about it, I wanted to know how long it's actually been a thing, and I found the earliest mention of it was about 2006, I think it was.
Even earlier,
because long time coming.
Even earlier, because I was working in a comic shop in around 2001-ish, and customers were talking about it then. So yeah, it goes back even further than that.
Back, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that is Dwayne Johnson, and Black Adam is the movie, which we'll get to. But before we get into that, tell people a little bit more about your show and how you got interested in talking about doing a podcast on professional wrestling in Japan, of all places.
Yeah. So, I came up like everybody else in the late 90s did with WWF, WCW, and all the what they call the Attitude Era stuff, where it was very car crash entertainment oriented and all that kind of thing. And eventually it just kind of wears thin a little bit, I would say. So I was at a point probably about 6 or 7 years ago where I was just kind of tired of the same old thing. And I'd heard about Japanese wrestling for years, but had never checked it out. So I thought, before I'm just completely out of the game, let me see what all this is about. And I started watching some of the stuff from Japan, and it just kind of floored me because it was a type of wrestling that I just hadn't been subject to. And I thought, this is the type of thing I've been looking for that I've never been shown on American television. And so I thought, this is the type of thing I could get back into and really love wrestling again, because I loved it I was probably 6 or 7 when I first started watching, and I was very close to just being completely out. And this completely changed me around and reignited my love for that type of entertainment. And so about a year and change ago, I started doing a podcast about it. And ever since, I've been very happy with the stuff we've been doing, and it's allowed me to discover even more Japanese wrestling as I've gone through it.
Okay, awesome. So what would you say is the biggest difference between the Japanese pro wrestling scene and the American pro wrestling scene?
I think the biggest difference is the entertainment spectacle of the American version of wrestling, where it's about how big a thing can be, versus the Japanese wrestling, where it's still big. Don't get me wrong, it's still a big event, but it's positioned more like I hate to say. I mean, it is a sport, but I mean, obviously, predetermined, choreographed, all that kind of thing. But the way it's presented is more sports oriented, where it feels more like these are two guys or girls, whichever, who are really fighting for something they care about, versus the American version where it's not purely entertainment, because there are a few places to do it closer to that, but it's more for the spectacle of it than it is for the sport of it.
Right. It's more about the kayfabe and all that kind of stuff with that.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm someone who's never gotten into any sort of wrestling one way or the other, so this is all very, very new to me. Anyway, we do talk about superhero stuff on here, and like you said, there is, this connection. Obviously, a lot of people, I remember, especially back when I was working at the comic shop, a lot of people who were into superheroes and comic books were also really into pro wrestling. I think Wizard even did a few features on it back in the day. But what about you? What's your connection? How did you get interested in superheroes and also comics? Because I do know from our discussions that you're also into the comics as well. What was kind of like your story with that side of things?
It's really my big I was into comics a little bit as when I was younger. Like I would find like some of my dad's old comics. Like he had one of the old Superman versus Flash race comics. I think it's one of the first ones I remember reading. But I didn't like dive into them a whole lot when I was younger. It was actually more when I got into like kind of my mid late teens that I really started to get into comics, because the superhero movies had started coming out, and I was like, well, I want to know more about this. Let me go read some of these things. And I was like, some of this is, I mean, some of it's terrible, but some of it's amazing. And so I started reading. I probably started one of the weirder places you could start is the Amalgam comics, because I thought, oh, it's DC and Marvel. That must be amazing. And it is amazing for all the wrong reasons, probably. But that's probably one of the weirder places for you to start reading comics. But that's why I always have a love for the Amalgam stuff. And then I'd go on, you read your Dark Knight Returns, your, just all the Spider-Man stuff. But I do have, because I have read some of the other stuff that's surrounding like Amalgam stuff, like the 90s things, where I was a big fan of the 90s Clone Saga with Spider-Man. I'm a Ben Reilly guy. So it makes, if it's weird and maybe a little crap in the 90s, I probably love it.
I got my Ben Reilly Spider-Man here. Actually, I'm not sure you can quite see it.
I love it.
So yes, I am also a Ben Reilly guy. The Clone Saga, not so much, but Ben, I always dug Ben. It's funny you talk about Amalgam too, because we are actually doing an upcoming episode of the comic side of this show. Me and my guest are going to be covering all the Amalgam comics on that. So it's pretty timely so I've been diving into those lately. And yeah, that was I remember, because I was reading actively at the time Marvel versus DC, and me being a kid when that happened. I think that was in 96-ish or something like that. So I was only about So I was, but like 13 years old at that point, and I actually believed that this is going to be the new thing going forward, that all Marvel and DC had combined together, and so, but it turned out to just be for a month, and I felt really silly after that. But one of the things I loved about those comics, though, is the fake letters pages, because the stories themselves, for the most part, they weren't all that special, but there are these fake for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, or doesn't know what we were talking about. In the 90s, Marvel and DC did this crossover where they picked several of their top characters to fight each other. So it was like Superman versus Hulk, Captain America versus Batman, Storm versus Wonder Woman, Wolverine versus Lobo, and Spider-Man, the Ben Reilly version, versus Superboy were kind of like the main core matchups of that. And after I think it was the third issue of it, They had and all the matches were determined by the fans. Like their fans could vote on all the matches, which led to some pretty bizarre circumstances, like Wolverine beating Lobo, even though that does not seem even remotely possible. And then or Storm beating Wonder Woman as well. So it was just basically a big popularity contest. And but after the third issue, they did this thing where the two universes merged together, and for 1 month, Marvel and DC co-published these comics called Amalgam, and there was like a bunch of different ones. So they had like combined Storm and Wonder Woman into Amazon was the name of the character. Wolverine and Batman were combined into Dark Claw. Superman and Captain America were combined into Super Soldier, and a whole bunch of other ones like Doomsday and Doctor Doom were one combination. And it was a fun little thing. Stories weren't all that great, but one of the cool things about it is they did have these fake letters pages and these fake editorial footnotes referencing past issues that obviously never ever published. So it was this really kind of interesting way of sort of like peering into this alternate universe where Marvel and DC were one publisher as opposed to two. But yeah, I really dug that back in the day too. That was a fun thing. The Clone Saga, I got into that later. I actually, a few years back, there was a whole run of trades, like the complete Clone Saga, and I picked them all up and I read them all. And that was my first time.
I did too, yeah.
Oh, okay. So that was kind of like my first exposure to the Clone Saga in full. And reading it like that all in one batch, it's not as bad as it was at the time, but I can definitely see how if you were reading the comics from month to month, how frustrated you would have been. The fact that this story was constantly spinning its wheels.
Yeah, very much so. I'm very happy that I can read it all in the trades in a couple of weeks versus years on end.
Yeah. So you talked about a few things that got you interested there with Amalgam, but you mentioned that you first kind of got interested through the movies and TV shows. So what was that side of things? What was it that really grabbed your attention from there that made you then decide, I'm going to take a look at the comics?
Right. I mean, I'd seen like your Reeves Superman movies when I was a kid and stuff like that, but I was never just big into any of the superhero movies. Like you'd go and see the Schumacher Batman, and it was always hokey and just a little ridiculous, and it was never something that I loved. But I think once we started getting to the Raimi Spider-Man movies, when it seemed like they were starting to take things more seriously, I was like, okay, this is cool. They aren't making you feel like you're a child watching this. They're actually taking these stories seriously. I can get behind this. So that's probably where it started. And then you have your X-Men and all that. And then obviously once you start with Marvel and they start making a whole universe of it, then you're like, yeah, I have to know more.
Okay, very cool. All right. And we like to talk about stuff that, people are getting into lately. So what's kind of grabbing your interest these days? It doesn't have to be superhero related, anything, movies, books, TV, anything like that that's kind of getting your interest?
Let me see. What was that show that I just started watching the show Silo on Apple Plus with Rebecca Ferguson's the star of it. It's based on a book that was, I think it's the only, if I remember correctly, it's the only #1 bestseller that started on Amazon Books. Like it was published there first specifically, I think.
Is that
correctly.
The Hugh Howey book?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
I know about that.
They did the show of it. Yeah. I've been dived into that. I just started the second season. I've been really enjoying that lately. It's done really well, I think. I've never read the books, but it does make me want to read them just to see where all this goes.
Yeah, I'm an independent publisher myself, so like I'm in kind of the similar circles as Hugh Howey, nowhere near his level of success, but yeah, he I think last I heard he was taking all this money that he made from these deals and stuff like that, and he's sailing around the world, so he's definitely
that's the way to do it.
Yes, absolutely. As for me, I have been diving into like some little bit of most of the stuff I've been consuming these days has actually been for podcasting or for my movie classes. So I haven't had a chance to really kind of get into anything on my own. But in bits and drabs, I've been going back to the Scott Snyder Justice League run and reading that because. So a while back, I'd read the death metal crossover, but DC did something very annoying with the trades for that crossover, whereas they published each of the miniseries and the one shots in its own separate trade without telling you that these books cross over each other. And so it's not like the other two trades are supplemental. They are essential to understanding the main story. So when I read the main story, it was very confusing. And it wasn't until after I'd read all the books that I realized, like, oh, wait, this part here from, this supposedly supplemental trade actually leads directly into, these parts here in the main crossover. So that was very annoying. And I hated death metal because of that. And I'd recently found a reading guide to go through it the right way. And so now I'm going back, and they said it started with Justice League. So I'm going back to his Justice League and going over that again with the hopes of reading death metal once more in the proper order and hopefully actually understanding what the hell it was supposed to be this time.
Right.
I don't know if you'd read death metal or Scott Snyder's Justice League at all.
I haven't. I've read his Batman. I haven't read the Justice League yet. This one's
Batman
on my
I
list. Yeah.
Yeah, his Batman I loved. I loved his Batman stuff. Towards the end, not so much. I thought after I think it was 0 Year, it started to I lost a little bit of interest in it, and the Bloom stuff, I didn't get as much into that, or with Gordon taking over. But yeah, up until that, like the Court of Owls, death of the family, all of that stuff, I was totally on board for.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm enjoying the Justice League stuff so far, so I'm hoping I will enjoy death metal a little bit more this time around now that I have the proper reading order for it. But anyway, like we said, danced around this a little bit. We are talking today about Black Adam, the 2022 film that was supposed to shake the balance of power in the DCEU. Which technically it did, although not in the way Dwayne Johnson expected it to.
Yes.
Because after this, Warner Brothers, kind of like, cut their losses, and they just went to James Gunn and Peter Safran and like, can you take over this for us and do it right? But what is your history with this character and this film?
My history is hearing for years that The Rock is going to be Black Adam and thinking, no, he's not. This is never happening. One, he's not a good enough actor for this. Two, it's Black Adam. Why would they ever do Black Adam in a movie? He's not a big enough name. And even hearing, this movie's in production now, seeing pictures from the production, I'm like, I don't believe it until I'm in the theater. Because it was, 15 years in the making, basically?
Close to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the film officially began development in September 2014. Although obviously this has been talked about nonstop for years before that. And really, this is one of those cases where also, what's his name from The Office as Reed Richards. This is one of those types of things where, it's just like the fan. Yeah. John Krasinski. Yes, thank you. It's just one of those cases where the fan casting is getting out of control because everybody was talking about how Dwayne Johnson was the best choice for Black Adam. Just because, and I really believe this was the case, because back in his wrestling days, he had a very similar hairstyle. And I think that's really all it comes down to.
Yeah. He was big, he was buff, he had the hair. Yeah.
Dude's not even Egyptian. So. But it was this thing that people were talking about back in the day. And this is where I was hinting at before. When I was working at the comic shop, I remember around the time of I think it was a little bit after the first X-Men film came out when they were talking about the sequel. And I remember there was fan discussion even of Dwayne Johnson playing Beast back then. I'm just like, why would you want that? Who would want that? But apparently a lot of people did, because I remember it being a big topic of conversation around the store at that time. But Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I never understood this idea. I never understood the notion of Black Adam being this character who could headline his own franchise. I was never a big Shazam Captain Marvel guy to begin with, but it just seems so bizarre to me that you would take his one of his biggest villains, and instead of having him in that movie, you're going to send it to spin it off into his own film just because this one actor has got this big presence about him. I mean, so yeah, that part of it never really, and I don't know much about Black Adam for the comics. It wasn't until years later that I read some of the stuff. I think it was in the 52 weekly series that he had a pretty big role, and I read that. I'm like, okay, he's got some interesting development here. Not sure it's enough to headline a whole movie, but I have liked Dwayne Johnson and other stuff. He's fun to watch in like the Rundown or Jumanji or the Get Smart movie. So he's got a really good presence. He's really fun to watch on screen. But to your point, he is not an actor, really. I mean, he's just
he's a presence.
He's a presence, exactly. Like, he's someone who comes in and he plays himself basically in everything. And that's fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I'm totally cool with all that. And like I said, I've enjoyed him in other stuff. But if you're going to do something like Black Adam, where this character is supposed to be a lot more nuanced, a lot darker, you need someone who's got some acting chops to pull that off. And Dwayne Johnson just doesn't.
No, even at his peak in wrestling, you would never call the man nuanced. He was like everything he ever did was over the top. And that's not at all what the Black Adam character is supposed to be. Yeah. So what were some of your thoughts did you see this in the theater when it came out? Yes, I did. Yes, this is the second time I've seen this movie, and it is not a movie I expected to see a second time. I didn't see it in the theater just because I was like, I have to see this in the theater to believe it actually exists.
Yeah, I did not see it in the theater. I waited for this to come to, I think I still had HBO Max at that point. I think this was the last thing I watched on HBO Max before I finally canceled after they jacked up the price. Yeah, I did not care so much for it myself. I thought it was just really kind of a bland story. The best part of it, honestly, was Pierce Brosnan. Like, I'm totally down for a Pierce Brosnan Dr. Fate movie after this, but other than that, the rest of it, Dwayne Johnson, the annoying little kid in it, none of that really did much for me at all.
The kid drove me crazy. I thought he might have been worse than The Rock in this.
Yeah.
Anytime, like, I'll never understand the need for Hollywood to put in the little kid as the sidekick. Just to have a kid in it, so you have stakes, I guess. It almost never works.
No, I totally agree with you, and I feel the same thing. Like, my whole attitude is, if you can't get someone to match Ke Kwan as Short Round, just don't bother, because it's never gonna come out well. This was just so, I think that kid is just so emblematic of just kind of like the idea of this movie, where it's just very paint by numbers. And it doesn't feel like they're trying to do anything interesting with any of these characters. So it's just like, we got this. And they even try to pull like some sort of twist on it with Dwayne Johnson's character. I'm like, that's not a twist.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for just a second, because it's the most obvious thing you've ever seen. Because at the beginning of the movie, you see the silhouette of the guy. There's no, like, that's obviously Dwayne Johnson, but he's skinny. Like, you can just see it, and you're like, oh, that's what they're gonna do. And you're like, no, there's got to be something else to it. And no, the movie does exactly what you think it's gonna do at all times.
Yeah, I the same idea. Like, as soon as I saw him, like, well, that's obviously him. And it was just like the twist of Spectre, when it's like, you cast like one of the biggest villain actors in a James Bond movie called Spectre, and you're going to try and trick us that he's not playing Blofeld. Come on. And it was a very similar thing with this. Like that was, and you know one thing I don't get about this too is just like a lot of the story doesn't make sense. It feels like they put these characters in these roles just because that is kind of the role they're supposed to play, but they don't have like, you know, Black Adam has been tied to the Justice Society in the past. He had appeared, I think he'd been a member at one point or something like that. But he had, you know, they'd done comics with him. I'm not a big JSA fan, but I remember from like covers and just like scuttlebutt around here and there. So they figure, well, okay, then we have to have the Justice Society in this. Except I don't get. This doesn't make any sense within the context even of the DCEU at the time, because the whole thing was the Justice League was supposed to be this huge, big, you know, new organization. And then we find out, oh, we've got the Justice Society as well. And they're like an Amanda Waller's, you know, not quite Black Ops team, but then she's also got Suicide Squad. So it's just like none of this really kind of fit together at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it especially it also a weird team to begin with, because you basically do the whole putting together a team thing in the span of what, 4 minutes probably, and the only backstory you get is that Henry Winkler was the original Atom Smasher. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, Henry Winkler's in this movie for 3 seconds. I'm glad he got a payday. That's about the best I can say about it.
Yeah, that was it. Like I clocked that as well. I'm like, oh, is that? And I had to double check the credits to see if I'd actually saw Henry Winkler in this. But again, this is the whole thing of this universe is that Superman was supposed to have been this, you know, completely status quo altering figure who appeared, right? This is the first time we see someone with superpowers. You can still work Batman into that because he doesn't have superpowers. So you can work this idea of a masked vigilante. I'm cool with that. That makes sense. It doesn't make sense for there to have been, you know, the Justice Society at some point in the past, because obviously Henry Winkler was not running around in the Atom Smasher suit after Man of Steel. This is something that happened in the past.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, obviously it's obvious that they never had an actual plan for any of it, that it was always from the start from Man of Steel, they were just like, we'll see what works and what doesn't, and then we'll go from there. There was no, you know, they didn't have the Feige to be like, hey, this is direction we're going. They just took whatever they thought worked and went with it. And if it made sense in the movies, and it made sense, and if it didn't, then just look over the other way.
Yeah. And I really think like this, one of the good things I can say about this movie is I'm glad it happened because it knocked Dwayne Johnson down a few pegs after this. And you know, it was funny. When I was trying to rewatch this last night, I was just so bored. Most of the time I was just like searching stuff about the movie on my phone, because that was actually the development of this movie, and all the behind the scenes stuff was actually far more interesting than anything in the movie itself.
Yes. Give me the movie about making this movie.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, I would much rather have seen that. And the whole thing, like, and you know, I was reading the stuff about it because apparently Dwayne Johnson and a few other actors have this too, this clause in their contracts where they can't lose a fight, or there's like a certain amount, and the way the fights go, like there's like I think it was like Vin Diesel's sister or something had like come up with this system for like awarding like points for like each blow in a fight or something like that, and like it had to be above like this ratio or something. I'm just like, first, I mean, how insecure do you have to be to the point that you have to specify in your contract that your character can never lose a fight? I mean, that doesn't make you seem tough. It just makes you seem, you know, very insecure.
So here's the thing. If you know anything about professional wrestlers, it's that they are the most insecure people that have ever existed. They do not want to lose, and if they're going to lose, it better be for a good reason and for a lot of money. So if you're going to cast a professional wrestler in anything that isn't named Dave Bautista, you're probably not going to have a great time doing this movie.
Or John Cena too. Like I'll defend John Cena as well in that, because he really brought it in Peacemaker in a way that I was not expecting.
Yeah, he's one of the few guys who's game to do things. He doesn't mind looking like an idiot.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so much so that he even, embarrasses himself on Last Week Tonight sometimes when he appears with John Oliver. So, and yeah, like, and I think that's what makes Bautista and Cena a lot more endearing, because they seem like real people that way.
Yes.
Whereas, guys like, Dwayne Johnson or Vin Diesel, it all just seems very fake and very posed. Like, I don't get any sense that they have any real sort of personality that I would be interested in knowing about.
Right.
So what are some things that kind of jumped out to you rewatching this? Anything you want to really kind of focus in on?
Yeah, it's like I felt like there was obviously this is not a good movie. Obviously Black Adam has a ton of problems, but there are interesting things in it. Like, I think there is a movie that's much better with Black Adam and, say, Hawkman, because there's similar backgrounds there. I guess depending on which version of the character you do, which they certainly never specify any background for the character, so you can't establish any of that. But if you say you did the version of Hawkman where he's resurrected all the time, there's something there you could do there with Black Adam. There's interesting things, like, let me see, I think I wrote it in my notes here. Yeah, like what was it, Eternium? Is that what it was? Yeah. And the nth metal, like these things that are, these huge, like I think their ship, they said it was all nth metal.
Yeah, yeah. Like, basically, I think all his technology was derived from nth metal.
As like the nth metal hit versus the Eternium, like all these things are like just little bits and pieces of this could be cool, showing how this affects this or something like that. I thought I loved the part the first time they fight Black Adam, which the Justice Society fights Black Adam, where they're basically getting their asses kicked the entire time, and they think they've got him beat, and the crowd just starts booing them. And it's because they see Black Adam as their protector, and the people that they've never seen, they've never cared about them before, come in, and they even say that, where have you been when we've been oppressed for decades? This guy just showed up and is getting rid of our oppressors. Why haven't you been here? Like, there's an interesting movie there. There's an interesting story you can tell there, but they spend 5 minutes on it and then go to something else that doesn't matter whatsoever.
Yeah, they are overly focused on this really manufactured relationship with Amon and Black Adam, and this whole idea of like him kind of being like this surrogate son to stand in for the one that, Teth Adam lost, years ago. And it's just like that relationship never connects on any level. No. Not the least of which because this kid is just a bad actor. And also like he's got the character is written very stereotypically. And I get no sense that Dwayne Johnson and this kid had Bodhi Sabongi is his name. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but I never get any sense that they have any sort of chemistry whatsoever. Like, this is I can imagine, like, as soon as the camera stopped, Dwayne Johnson is just probably like, get the fuck away from me, because that's how it feels like.
Right. The interesting thing about because I noticed this and it surprised me because I forgot about it completely. When they finally do the reveal that shows that Black Adam was originally his son and not actually Teth Adam, the guy who's playing his son as the Black Adam with the powers is the same guy who plays Young Rock in the Young Rock TV show that he did.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
So he was. Yeah, I've completely forgotten about that. But he made sure that the person who was playing his son buffed up was the same guy that was playing him buffed up on TV.
Hold on, back up here.
Yes,
they made a TV show about The Rock as a kid. No.
Oh, yeah. Yes, there was a TV. It's been canceled now, but I think it ran. I want to say it got 3 seasons, called Young Rock, and it shows him growing up with his dad in the business and him going through playing football and all this kind of thing. Now, I'll tell you this. The Rock isn't known for maybe not telling complete truths about his history. So it is a very homogenized version of his past. And the guy that plays the late teen, early college years Rock is the same guy playing the Black Adam Eyes version of his son in the movie. So yeah, they did an entire, I want to say it was 3 seasons of the Rock's story before pro wrestling.
I just looked this up, and for anyone else who, like me, is having their mind blown right now, it gets even crazier because the frame story is Dwayne Johnson in the 2030s running for fucking president.
Yes.
And they've got like legit people in this, like Randall Park and Rosario Dawson. I'm just like, what the hell? Wow.
Yes, it's the alternate universe where he gets everything he's ever wanted.
Oh my God. Oh, this sounds
yes.
This sounds like a parody. This sounds like something someone would do in a parody movie. This sounds like something that came right out of The Onion, but it's real.
It looks like it too, like because they have people playing all these like real life counterparts of people, and they all look terrible.
Oh my God. Okay.
Like if you get, I would watch like just the highlights of it just to see how ridiculous it is.
Yeah. Okay. This is coming at a good time. We got to take a break, and I've got to pick up the pieces of my brain that are splattered all over the wall right now because this is insane. All right, so we'll be right back after this.
Ever have a situation where you want to watch something on Netflix, but it's only available in another country? Or are you nervous about using public Wi-Fi networks without any protection? Then what you need is a VPN, or virtual private network. A VPN is essentially your own superhero mask that protects your device's secret identity from prying eyes. In these uncertain times, protecting yourself on the internet is more important than ever to prevent your data from being sold to the highest bidder. But free VPNs don't offer the security they promise, so a subscription VPN is best. I've been a loyal user of ExpressVPN for years. It's got fast speed, great support, and is very easy to use. Just install ExpressVPN on your device or Wi-Fi router, click a button, and you've got instant protection. You can also select which country you want to browse from, which gets around geo-blocking on streaming services like Netflix and Disney+. If you'd like to try out ExpressVPN, you can get a free trial by clicking the link in the show notes. So what are you waiting for? Start protecting yourself today. Since you're listening to this show, I already know you love watching superhero movies and TV shows, and you just might enjoy superhero comics. But how about superhero novels? I'm giving away 2 free superhero novels and 1 free superhero short story. Visit percivalconstantine.com/SCP to get access to Vanguard, Heroes Forged, the first novel in my own Avengers and X-Men inspired superhero novel series, and Ronin Born, my cyberpunk superhero novel set in a futuristic Japan. I'm also throwing in Fire and Lightning, a free prequel story to my new Power Rangers-inspired superhero series, Omega Knights. So visit percivalconstantine.com/SCP, those are just the letters SCP, to get started, or click on the link in the show notes. And now on with the show.
We are back. I have mostly recovered from just learning about Young Rock. So let's jump back into Black Adam now. Thank you for that. I'm gonna
You're very welcome. Or I'm very sorry.
Yeah. I'm not really sure which one, because I'm still not sure if I find this hilarious or horrifying. It's kind of a mix of the two.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's dive into one of the few bright spots of this movie, and that is the Justice Society side of things. At least Hawkman and Dr. Fate. I think they are really, if not for Aldous Hodge and Pierce Brosnan, this movie would be totally unwatchable.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I do have one qualm with one thing from Hawkman, though. It is a line, I have it right here. He says, "Heroes don't kill people." There's no proof of that in the DCEU. I remember this very specifically. I remember very specifically in Batman vs. Superman, I counted how many people does Batman kill. 27. It's ridiculous.
You literally have the guy who in the first movie of this universe broke a supervillain's neck in front of the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
And Hawkman's gonna deliver that line. Oh my God.
It's like, that's all they do. I've seen very little taking any prisoners whatsoever in this.
Yeah. Especially if you look at because this was also post Snyder Cut too. And Snyder Cut, Superman not only kill, he not only kills in that movie, he fucking mutilates what's his name? I can't even remember the villains on it. Steppenwolf. He fucking mutilates the guy in that.
Yes, I could do hours on how much I hate some things in the DCEU.
Yeah, we've definitely talked about that before.
But yeah, other than that, I didn't have a huge problem with. Yeah, I thought Hawkman was good. Yeah, Aldous Hodge I thought was a really good Hawkman. If you told me they brought him back and did a different version of Hawkman, I wouldn't be against it. I thought he did a good job, and like you said, Brosnan was wonderful in this.
Yeah,
I thought he was about as good as he could be. It took me a second to get used to the accent because I'm not used. I think that's closer to his real accent than most of the movies he does.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought
maybe
he
I've
was
seen
excellent.
him in. Maybe I've seen him in enough stuff, so that didn't stand out to me.
Yeah.
So that part didn't bother me. Although, one thing about Hawkman, as much as I think Aldous Hodge did a pretty good job with what he was given, and this is kind of like the same problem they had on Arrow, where it feels like they're trying to make him Batman, and it's just like this is not. So, and I'm not gonna sit here and claim to be like some expert on Hawkman and the Justice Society because I'm definitely not. But what little I know of Hawkman, it doesn't quite feel like that's the character that Hodge is playing.
Right. Yeah, of the little I do know of Hawkman, it's one of the most convoluted characters that has ever existed in comics. So basically, any version of Hawkman you play probably exists somewhere. But yeah, it seemed like they wanted him to be more of the not stoic, but just the more grounded character, I guess.
Yeah, but Brosnan, like I said, I think he is definitely the MVP of this movie. He feels very, and again, I'm not an expert, but he does feel very true to what I know of Fate from the comics and from Justice League animated series and other stuff I've seen him in. And honestly, I would happily watch a Pierce Brosnan Dr. Fate movie. I mean, I'm all for bringing Viola Davis back as Amanda Waller, but really, I think you got to bring Brosnan back as Dr. Fate.
Mm-hmm.
But the other two members of it, we got Quintessel Swindell as Cyclone and Noah Centineo as Atom Smasher. They didn't do anything for me, and they felt very superfluous and just it kind of felt like the X-Men First Class, where they have all these other characters that are basically just there to be special effects. That's what it felt like with Cyclone and Atom Smasher to me.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing: I didn't mind the effects. I thought they were actually decent in a few spots, but just they didn't really bring anything. Whereas, with Dr. Fate, some of his power set, I thought they did really well. I thought they showcased the things he could do about as well as they did anything in the movie.
No, yeah, I mean, visually, I think the movie is pretty good on that aspect of it. It looks good. I think the costumes are very well done, especially on Fate and Hawkman and even Black Adam too. I thought they did a really good job, translating those looks into the into live action.
It's also surprisingly bright for a DCEU movie.
Yeah. This was this weird. This is this very weird period where they're trying to kind of reroute the ship after all these failed attempts to restart things, and they just couldn't really land on anything with this. But but and I think that's a good time to talk about some of the behind the scenes stuff, because that's, you know, and what happened in the aftermath. Because like I feel especially bad for Henry Cavill in all this.
Yes.
Because he was basically used as a pawn by Dwayne Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And they do this whole thing where they bring him in and they announce that he's going to be coming back as Superman, and they even give him a brighter version of the suit, and they even give him the spit curl and everything. And seeing him in that post-credit scene, I was totally down for that. I was all there. But again, this creates problems with the first off, with Dwayne Johnson's ego, because his whole thing was like, oh, I want to see Black Adam and Superman fight in a movie. It's like, well, that outcome's already predetermined because you have this bullshit contract.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not going to be any fun to even watch. But also, I mean, like, dude, you are not playing, some key figure of the DC universe. You are playing the villain of a character in a completely different movie. And I think Zachary Levi even talked about how like they'd wanted to do Black Adam in a sequel or something, but Dwayne Johnson had, completely prevented them from being able to do anything, which really hampered Fury of the Gods. Ironically enough, Fury of the Gods is actually a much better movie than this is.
Is it?
I think so. I had a lot more fun with it than I definitely had a lot more fun with Fury of the Gods than I did with this.
I think just from character perspective, I think it probably is. Yeah. Not by a ton, but I would say, yeah.
I mean, character perspective, just overall storytelling, and just overall enjoyment, like fun factor. Yeah.
There was fun in the movie. Yes.
Mm-hmm. This is not fun. This is just, and it's not even, and I'm not saying like it's not like it's not fun in the way that, a serious movie is not fun. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm fine with doing like a serious take on Black Adam. And I think this idea of this resurrecting the superhero who comes to this Middle Eastern nation, and because this is one of the interesting things about, something like Doctor Doom, right? Where the thing that's interesting about Doctor Doom is he actually makes a pretty good argument in favor of fascism, because he is a benevolent dictator. Like his people love him, legitimately love him, because he does things for them. So, and that's an interesting conversation to have, especially in, the kind of world we're dealing in now. But this movie is not interested in any of those questions. It's just more interested in, let's make The Rock look good by having him beat up other superheroes.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to touch on? Anything else that you wanted to say about this?
Let me see. I think that mostly covers the big things about this. It's like one thing I did find funny is how many record drops there are in this movie, because I think I counted 3. I think it was Paint It Black, it was Kanye's Power, and then what was the other? Bullet with Butterfly Wings. That was the other one, where just out of nowhere, just these big musical numbers with fights on them, and I'm like, we couldn't get a little more creative than that.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought they were and they're also just some of the most on the nose picks you could have made. Like Paint It Black, of course you do Paint It Black because everything in the movie's black. That's right. That's wonderful. Certainly Kanye's not aged well. But yeah, other than that, I think that about covers the insanity of this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we do have the whole thing with Sabak, but honestly, he's such a non-presence in this movie.
Yeah, you get the character for what, probably 15 minutes total.
Yeah,
maybe that.
Mm-hmm. And also the Hawkman thing too. Like you said something earlier that I think was a really good point. This idea of if you're doing the Hawkman who has been, resurrected, then you can find a way to link them together. And that's a much more interesting concept than what we get here, because at least then you can get some sort of, they have some sort of kinship, and there's some way they can connect together on this,
and your universe feels more lived in.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Instead of just, telling us the Just Society have always been here, which feels completely incongruous with everything we've seen so far. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the Henry Cavill part of it. What did you think of Henry Cavill popping up at the end here?
I mean, I thought, this is very interesting. It's very cool to see these two characters facing off against each other, even knowing this is the cameo that killed the DCE. This is the tease that will never be, but it is still cool to see. Like, if nothing else, there are cool visuals in this movie. You get the scene where, the famous Black Adam on the throne pose. You get that in the movie, and you're like, oh, I've seen that in a comic. That looks cool. You see, and then at the end you see Superman and Black Adam facing off, and you're like, oh, I wonder what that would look like. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, where you'll probably never see that. But it is interesting to at least see.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. I'm looking now at the future of it. So Danny Garcia's involved in the negotiations, the business side of things, said that Johnson and the other producers plan to make multiple Black Adam films during their long-term relationship with DC, which is so funny to read now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also that, Cavill talking about how his mid-credits cameo in Black Adam was just a very small taste of things to come. Yeah. Even that is overselling it a little bit.
Yeah, just let the man go play Warhammer and leave him alone.
Yeah, or let him play James Bond, honestly. I think that would be really interesting.
I'm not against it.
Yeah, I mean, after seeing him in Man from U.N.C.L.E. and the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, I'd say he beat him or Michael Fassbender are my two big fan castings for the next Bond.
Yeah.
And either one would be awesome to see. And yeah, this is just, I am just glad that, this really kind of is a black mark on Dwayne Johnson's career now, because this kind of showed everyone that he's, not this big powerhouse he thinks he is. and that, and then we did get a writing of the ship after this, because now after this, pretty much almost immediately after this, it was it was decided they're going to just give everything to James Gunn and Peter Safran. And I'm not sure if you've seen the latest Superman trailer, but I'm
very excited. I'm liking almost everything that I've seen out of it so far.
Same here. Absolutely. And, by the time people listen to this, because this episode's actually going to be coming out in the fall, so people have already seen it. And, hopefully this part of the conversation won't have aged as poorly as
hopefully
those comments about Black Adam.
It's a second Black Adam.
Yeah. I don't know, but knowing what I know of Gunn's past work, I don't think we're in a risk of that. So I think we're definitely going to be in for something good.
Yes.
But yeah, this movie just overall, just a massive disappointment. Even when it came to the trailers and stuff, I was never, and maybe just my bias coming through, but because I was never interested in this character or this idea of, I was never committed to this idea of Dwayne Johnson, in this part. So, but even when I saw the trailers, it just didn't feel like anything special to me at all at any point in the from development all the way up to actually sitting down and watching it. Never once did I get excited about this.
Yeah, no, I would agree too. But I also come from, like I said, I'm from a background where I've known who he is and what type of person he kind of is for a long time, going back to, when he was young. He's always been basically the same person. So I was like, yeah, I know what he can and can't do, and I'm not excited. I don't know that he can lead a franchise.
Where were you telling it to everybody else at that time? Then we could have
I was telling it to everybody. I was like, this isn't going to be good. There's no chance. I've seen this man do things. I know what he can and can't do, and this is not a thing he can do.
Yeah. the most interesting thing about this conversation is just finding out about Young Rock.
Yes. That'll be your next podcast, the Young Rock podcast.
Yeah, right. Yeah, doing a deep dive rewatch of Young Rock. All right. Yeah, don't hold your breath for that one anytime soon. But anyway, Kaz, thanks so much for coming on. And why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Yep. Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, all of them. I'm the same handle. I'm at the Kaz Wheeler. And if you want to check out the Didn't Get All of It Japan Pro Wrestling podcast, we are on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, basically wherever you can get your podcast. Just search Didn't Get All of It Japan. And we are also on our website, fatal4pod.com, fatal, pod.com, and you can get the show there as well.
Okay, great. Well, hope people will check that out. We'll have links to that stuff in the show notes. As for us, superherocinephiles.com is the website, and we are superherocinephiles.com on Blue Sky and also Super Cinema Pod, pretty much all over places, although Blue Sky is where I'm most active these days. So please check us out there. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. Superhero Cinephiles is produced by me, Percival Constantine. The show is created by myself and the late great Derek Ferguson, our host emeritus. Visit us on the web at superherocinephiles.com to listen to past episodes or find out how you can be a guest yourself. Support the show by visiting our advertiser links or click the Buy Me a Coffee link on the website to make a one-time donation. We are Super Cinema Pod on both Instagram and Blue Sky, so please be sure to follow us. We'd also appreciate it if you could rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and share us with your friends.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.